Just about every statement we'll write is going to involve an operation, moving data from one place to another, adding, subtracting. Now, to perform a lot of these operations, we need operators, and that just means the symbols that we're using to manipulate our values. The most obvious are probably the arithmetic operators. We have addition, we have subtraction, an asterisk for multiplication, / for division. Now, you'll typically see these used along with the equals sign, and the equals sign is formally called the assignment operator. When we hit this statement, we're going to execute whatever's on the right of the equal sign and use it to assign the value to whatever's on the left of the equal sign. So for those of you new to programming, remember that when you see a single equal sign, that's not a polite description, that's a command. We are setting a value, we are assigning. Now, you'll often see the same variable being used on both sides of the equal sign. In this case, we're just adding 10 to the variable called score and storing the result back in score. Now, adding to a variable or subtracting to a variable happens so often that there's actually a shorthand for this. I could write this statement this way. I could also write it this way using the += operator, meaning add this number to this variable. Note that this is a single operator, so there's no spaces between the plus and the equals. And if we have a shorthand for adding to a variable, we also have a shorthand for subtracting a number for a variable and for multiplying or dividing a variable by a particular number. Now, as with most languages, there is operator precedence in JavaScript, simply meaning some operator symbols are treated as more important than others. Particularly, multiplication and division are regarded as more important than addition or subtraction. So if I read the expression on the right-hand side of the equals sign and just read it in order left to right, I'd think 5 + 5 is 10, times 10 is 100. But no, the multiplication is regarded as more important, so that's done first. 5 multiplied by 10 is 50, then we add 5 and the result is 55. If I want to impose an order on this, I simply take the important pieces that I want to be executed together and surround them with parentheses. In this case, I would take the 5 + 5, and that would make sure that that was executed independently. Then we multiply it by 10, and the result is 100. Now, moving on, we have the comparison operators. Back to this idea of equality. Again, if you're checking that variables are equal to each other or equal to other values, you can use the == operator. Now, a classic mistake of programmers in any C-based language, including JavaScript, is to accidentally use a single equals sign where you're meant to use a == sign. So here's an example. I create two variables, variable A equal to 5, variable B equal to 10. If later on in my code I ask if A is equal to B, well, I'm using the wrong operator. What's going to happen here is that the single equal sign is a command. We will hit this, and then we will set A equal to the value of B. This then returns true, and the code in the if statement will always be executed even when you think it shouldn't be. This is perfectly legal syntax in JavaScript and in a lot of other languages too, but it can lead to code that just doesn't work the way you expect, and it's difficult to debug because it's easy to miss. So remember, one equals sign is assignment. You are telling. 2 equals sign is the equality operator. You're asking. And in JavaScript, there is another equality operator, the 3 equals signs. 3 equals sign is the strict equality operator. Now, what on earth does that mean? Let me show you an example. I'm going to open up Firefox. I just have my preferences set to open on a blank page, and I'll open up the Firebug panel, make sure I'm in the console, and that I have the whole right-hand pane activated so I can type some JavaScript in here. You could also do this in an HTML page or a JavaScript file. So I write some very simple code here. In this code, I have two variables. Variable A starts off with the number 5, and variable B starts off with the value 5, but as a string using double quotes. Now I'm going to go ahead and run this. So I'm checking if A is equal to B. And if you notice, I must be popping up the alert that says, yes, they're equal. And here's what's happening. If I use the 2 equals signs as the equality check here, they are regarded as equal. The JavaScript engine is checking them and saying, okay, these two variables may not be identical. One's a number and one's actually a string value, but they have the same value, so I'm going to say this is true. But if I use the 3 equal signs here, this is strict equality check. Run that again, and the output here is that they are not equal. The comparison is false. 3 equal signs, strict equality, is going to check that they are the same value and the same type under the hood, that they are not just equal, but identical. And most of the time, the double equal sign and the triple equal sign will behave the same. As an example, if I had created this second variable just to have the number 5, then if we use the 3 equal signs, we would say, yes, they're equal. And if we use 2 equal signs, yes, they're equal. They're both equal and they're identical. And most of the time you'll find that the double equals and triple equals could be used interchangeably, though some JavaScript experts recommend using the triple equal sign all the time and just never using double equals. I wouldn't go that far, so when I see a double equals sign in someone else's JavaScript, I don't consider it wrong. But if you were to get into the habit of using triple equals all the time, that's certainly not a bad habit to get into. So when we're writing, say, an if statement and we're checking if we have equality double equals. If we want to check that something is not equal to, it's the exclamation mark equals. Or we have the triple equals and its counterpart, exclamation mark equals equals, not strictly equal to. We then have the classic greater than operator, less than operator, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. And again, all of these must respond with either true or false. Something is equal or it is not. Something is greater than or it is not. Something is strictly equal to or it is not. Now, what happens if you have a few questions to ask? If in a situation that we're comparing several things, I want to know if A is strictly equal to B and C is strictly equal to D, how do I write that? Well, what we'll use here is the double ampersand. This means and, a logical and. And I say logical and there because some people take and as meaning addition. The flip side of this is, what if we're interested in one or the other situation? If the variable A is strictly equal to the variable B or the variable C is strictly equal to the variable D, we use the double vertical bar or pipe symbol. This is the logical OR. Now you'll often see these kind of split up with multiple sets of parentheses to make it a bit more explicit about what you're looking at. In this case, if A is greater than B and C is less than D. But as ever, the entire condition, the widest set of parentheses, must evaluate as either true or false. If you have several things to check, you may even split it across multiple lines if you want to make it more readable. It's one of the benefits of whitespace being insignificant. Now, a couple of roundabout operators here. We have the modulus or remainder operator in JavaScript. This one's a little different. Probably the classic example here is using it to do something like calculating a leap year. So in this case, I create a variable called year, and it's equal to 2003. And then I create a variable called remainder, and I set that equal to year %4. The percent here is the modulus or remainder operator. And what it means is divide the variable year, 2003, by 4. But don't give me the result. Give me the remainder, which in this case, 4 would go into year 500 times, and the remainder would be 3. And you'll run into this one now and then. Next, we have shorthand for adding to a variable. Now, we've already seen this a little bit. If we have a variable called a and we want to add 1 to it, I could do it the long way, which would be this. I could do it the shorter way, a plus equals 1. But if I'm just interested in adding 1 to a variable, I can also use another operator, which is plus plus. If you want to get geeky about this, this is what's called a unary operator, meaning it only needs one thing to act on. Now, the plus plus operator, which increments by 1, can be used either after the variable name or before the variable name, so a plus plus or plus plus a. And the flip side is true. We have a is equal to a minus 1, or a minus equals 1, or a minus minus, or minus minus a. They all do the same thing. Now, by themselves on lines like this, great. But there is actually a tricky difference. So the plus plus and the minus minus can be used either before the variable name or after. Technically, if you want to get geeky about it, it's what's called the prefix and postfix versions of those operators. And while they end up doing the same thing, they do it in a different way, and there is an impact to which one you choose. Let me show you what I mean. Let's say we start off with creating a variable a and setting it equal to 5. What I'm then going to do is write a statement that says alert ++ a. So I want to pop up a message box with the contents of the variable a, and I'm going to add one to it. What happens is, using the prefix version where the ++ is before the variable, we will actually execute that and we'll increment a before we run this line. So the value of a will be changed to 6, and then the alert message will pop up saying 6. However, if I go back and do this a slightly different way, doing an alert with a ++, what happens is we'll first do the alert, and only then at the end of the line will we cause 1 to be added to a. The end result is the same, that the variable a is equal to 6, but the message that we popped up was different. And this is one of those little things that can cause bugs. So I tend to only use the ++ and - on their own statements by themselves. Then it doesn't matter. I know that when I've executed that line of code, it's been incremented or decremented. And finally, the last one that I'm going to talk about is a great little useful one called the ternary operator. That's not a great name, but there's no better name for it. You see, most of our operators are what are called binary operators. And that doesn't mean they work on binary code. It just means they work on two elements. There's something on the left and something on the right. A plus B, amount divided by year. They work on two pieces. The unary operator, ++, - works on 1, and ternary works on 3. So it actually has two symbols to it, the question mark and the colon. Now, the general format of using this is that you have a condition, you are asking something, then you say what happens if this is true and what happens if this is false. You can actually think of it as a mini if-else statement. So let me show you an example here. So let's say I define two variables, var player1 equal to 500, var player2 equal to 600. Now, sometime later in my code, I want to create a high score variable. And I want to set this equal to whatever the larger of the first two are. Well, I could write this using an if statement. If player 1 is greater than player 2, we'll set high score equal to player 1. Otherwise, we'll set high score equal to player 2. So I've got about 6 lines here just to set the value of high score. With a ternary operator would let me take it from 6 or 7 lines to 1. What we do is we specify 3 things: the condition, question mark, what if it's true, colon, what if it's false. So my condition is player 1 greater than player 2. Like all conditions, this has to be either true or false. I put the question mark. Then I say if it's true, I want to return the value of player 1, colon, if it's false, I'm returning the value of player 2, semicolon to end the statement. This would allow me to get rid of that if statement and have the whole thing just on one line. Now, we probably won't use this much in this course, but you will see it from time to time, so I want you to be able to recognize it when you do see it. And this has given us plenty of operators and definitely will be enough to get us moving and building some useful logic in our code.